Hello, my name is Michael from Belfry Cosplay, and today we'll be making the crappiest sword in Skyrim. Welcome to the cosplay shop. So the iron sword from Skyrim. These are the blueprints, the blade, the hilt, which is just one big piece. There's also a fourth piece, but that's just for detail. You'll see what I mean with that later. So this is EVA foam, the 100 kilogram variant. You can get this in the shop, link below. So the next step is to create some kind of housing for this metal rod to go into, and we're just going to do that with the box cutter. So we're basically going to cut these from two angles, 45 degrees from one side and 45 degrees from the other side. So that's the basic gist of it, and then it's going to make like a tiny little crater for this rod to go into. So once you've wrapped this up, it's time to glue it together, and for this project we're going to use contact cement. You can get this in the shop. To apply contact cement you can just use a brush. Just don't expect to be using this again. We're just gonna cover the whole thing with the iron rod included. Just a nice and even coat throughout the whole surface. These pieces should be about dry right now. It's been about 5 minutes. So now it's time to sandwich this rod in between them. So just try to get them nice in the middle. So once you've glued these pieces together, it's time to start sanding this. The shape of the blade is actually quite simple. You just need the sand kind of like along the edge. It doesn't really start from the middle, which will save you a lot of time. I'm going to be using a belt sander for this, but you could just as well use a rotary bit. It'll work just fine. So we're at the belt sander. Always practice safety. We're going to be using gloves and a respirator for this. Well, a dust mask in this case, because you don't really want to inhale the particles that will be flying off of the foam. Safety first. So now we are going to kind of clean this blade up so it won't have any of these like loose parts anymore. I'm going to use a bit of sandpaper for this. And for the tip we're just going to use our box cutter to kind of remove the excess. So yeah, just like that. And the next step is to apply this detail. There is like a little relief in the middle of the blade, and we're gonna try to replicate this using some 2mm foam. You could use some tacks or some tape to hold this into place, but I'm lazy and I'm just gonna use my hands. And it's time to start gluing. So the two pieces are glued and stuck together. I also trimmed them on the bottom part. Next up is going to be the hilt for this blade. So that's next on the list. And I'll see you next time. Hello, welcome back to the shop. So we've already done the blade, we did the cutting, the sanding, and now it's just time to move on to the hilt. So we're gonna start with the guard by transferring this 3 times on a 5mm sheet of EVA foam. So we got 3 pieces. We're gonna use one of these and kind of cut like a tunnel in between them. That one is also going in the middle, so we can just slip it right on here, just like that. So just like that. Now that we've cut these pieces out, it's time to sandwich these together so we can make that tunnel. So you actually don't even always need to use a brush for this. You can just use a scrap piece of foam. It'll work just fine actually. And let's complete the sandwich. So now we've glued everything together, and then we can just slide it on like this, and let's get on to the sanding part. We're done using the Dremel. We've sanded the whole thing, also did the edges a bit to make it look more authentic, and now we're just going to use a bit of filler to hide these seams. For the handle we're going to use the same trick as we did with the guard. So we're going to cut this out 3 times, and in one of them we're going to get the same tubing so we can just plunk it on here. Yeah. So for the next 2 pieces we actually won't need these 2 wings here. So we are going to cut those off and transfer them again. And just like before, we're just going to use a piece of foam to brush the glue on. So everything is glued together. We've got a nice little hole in here to fit the core once again, and let's give it a test fit. So now what's left is to start rounding this handle to actually make it look like a proper handle, and then add some details and move on to painting and priming and paint. All that's left now is the pommel, the little hammered texture and the little grooves here and there, and also the plate that goes on the guard over here, just to make it more accurate. For that we're going to use our old pattern again. We're just going to cut out what we need for this. For this little piece we're going to use the 5mm foam and just transfer it 2 times. So I've roughly traced out where the glue needs to go. Now we're just going to detail this bit, all using the Dremel, so the edge, the tapered edge and the bolt in the middle. There's 2 bolts going on either side of this pommel, and we're going to replicate this by using a Dremel bit, and we're just going to press it on here and recreate this like bolt effect. So this looks like total crap right now, so we're going to use the Dremel bit as well to kind of smooth these out and make them look a lot more appealing. So there we go, that's a lot better. And now it's just getting these edges right and moving on to the swirly thing around the handle. For the little swirly thing, we're just going to use some 2mm foam. Get like a small little string and just wrap it around there and modify it a bit with a Dremel or some sanding paper. We'll see what will work best. So yeah, let's get started. And now we can just completely dive into getting that hammered metal effect. So the way we're going to do this is by gently pressing the drill bit against the foam. The hammered metal goes all over the whole blade, so we'll also need to cover the whole thing. Right, so we finished the whole blade. I've also gone ahead and did the whole hilt as well. And right now, I think it's about time we attach these pieces together permanently. Seems pretty stuck to me. So yeah, all that's left now is to prime and paint this. We're also gonna apply some filler to hide the seams a little better. But that's for next time. So I'll see you in a few seconds. Welcome back, guys. So today is going to be a bit more of a boring day. We're going to be filling, priming and painting, which means it's going to involve a lot of waiting. So for our filling, we're going to use some quick seal. For our priming, we're going to use some flex bond. And these are all available in the shop. And yeah, let's get on with the filling. Applying filler is actually pretty simple. You just smear it on there and get some water and just thin it out a bit until it looks right. So the quick seal has had about a couple of hours to dry, and now it's time to apply some flex bond and prime this boy. So first I'm gonna cover the whole surface of the blade, and afterwards kinda dab it on to give it a bit of a metal, hammered metal finish. Just dab like you're dabbing on the haters. And now we're just gonna take this outside and give it some time to dry. So, both layers each had a couple of hours of drying time, and now it's time to apply some paint on this boy. We're gonna start with a layer of black and then some silver. So yeah, let's start with the black. We're gonna apply this in the same way as we did with the flex bond. Just cover the whole thing, brush it on and dab it on afterwards. The paint has fully dried, and now it's time to apply some silver to this boy. I'm also gonna add a drop of black paint to just darken the whole tone a bit. So once again, same principle, just coat the whole thing, get it all over the surface, and afterwards we're gonna just dab it gently to get the metal texture in there. So now I'm just focusing on adding a nice ground layer, and afterwards I'm just gonna add some nice shades and highlights to the whole blade, which will make it look a lot better. So to apply the shading, we're gonna use just some regular old black acrylic paint and kind of thin it up with some water and just brush it on there. And afterwards we're just gonna brush it off with some whatever piece of cloth you got laying around. Just make sure you get most of it off, so this shading just remains there. I applied the shading a bit rougher than usual because it is also a pretty rough prop. It's nowhere near a fancy blade, so you also won't need to apply some fancy paint techniques to this. Just a rough brush will just do the trick. So now it's time to add some highlights, and we're also, as a bonus, going to add some varnish to this to make it look a bit more shiny and make the metal stand out more. The highlight is also going to be pretty simple. I'm going to use some just pure silver paint here, without the added black to it. Just get a bit on my brush, get most of it off, and then apply it to the prop. Just try to apply this on everything that's kind of like standing out a bit and that could use some extra attention. And that's finished. So now all that's left is to add a layer of varnish to give it a bit of a shine, and then we can show this prop off. And the blade is finished. So what I really like about this build is how well the rough but still realistic shading and highlighting turned out. Also the varnish added a really nice shine to it to make the metal effect really stand out. Also the hammered effects, it's a really simple trick, but it really pays off. Yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with the build. And that brings us to the end of this project. So, if there's anything you'd like to see us make in the future, be it from any kind of game, movie, just any franchise like Skyrim, Fallout, or Game of Thrones, Roblox, or Lord of the Rings, just anything, let us know in the comments below. You name it, we'll make it. We'll do our best anyways. But for now, I've got something that will go really well with this sword.
Wait, I know you.